Folks, small businesses across the country are feeling the effects as rising costs and slowing revenue continue to hit America. A new report and poll released by Voices of Main Street in the Small Business Majorities Network finds that nearly two-thirds of small business owners say their expenses have increased over the past 3 months, while only 9% say they have decreased. But nearly half report their revenue has declined over the same period. The poll reveals that small businesses are facing higher costs for supplies and inventory, along with reduced consumer spending. More than 70% say they're struggling to make payroll or cover basic expenses. Donald Trump's tariffs play a huge role. More than 70% of small businesses are reporting negative impacts, while healthcare and utility costs continue to rise. As a result, many businesses say they've been forced to raise prices, delay investments, freeze hiring, or even lay off workers. Due to these rising expenses, small business owners say monopolistic practices are harming them and that the federal government should do more to regulate monopolies. While some small businesses are turning to third-party AI tools to stay competitive, concerns about privacy, accuracy, and security remain across the board. Joining us now, co-founder of Momentum Coffee and a member of Small Business Majorities National Council, Nikki Bravo. Nikki, glad to have you here. When we talk about small businesses, look, 65%, we look at this country is largely driven by small businesses. Now, let me explain. When the federal government classifies a small business in America as 499 employees or smaller. So when people think small business, they may be thinking, 8, 10, 15 people. That's not how it's categorized in this country. But the reality is when you start talking about, supply chain, goods and services. We had John Boyd on yesterday with the National Black Farmers Association talking about how this war with Iran has caused prices for fertilizer to go up 40%. Listen, when that happens, that eats into the profits of businesses that already have low profit margins.
Absolutely, hit it on the head. So we have coffee shops, so you can understand margins. So I'm the co-founder of a coffee shops here in Chicago, Illinois. We feel the impact of all of the things that you talked about, right? And I don't know that lawmakers always understand how this impacts very quickly small businesses. So you talked about the poll from the Small Business Majority, and absolutely, as our company is feeling those same things. Looking at comparison from year over year, we're seeing lower revenues. Restaurant businesses, the first 3 months of the year, we're used to it being slow, but not this slow. And we really point to things like the tariffs, uncertainty. Uncertainty for small businesses is a killer, right? It impacts our ability to be able to purchase. It impacts our ability to be able to hire. It impacts our ability to be able to know what's going to happen next. These tariffs and what's happening in and around the world also impacts customer sentiment. And again, when people aren't feeling good, Roland, they're not spending money. So all of these types of things impact negatively these small businesses that we say are the backbone of our country.
But take folks through who don't quite get this. When you're talking about, okay, you're owning a coffee shop. Just explain to people just the basic things that they don't get. We're talking, we're talking about cups and lids and all these things that people see when they walk into a store, not understanding every single one of those things, whereas packets of sugar or cream or whatever. There's a price associated with all of that. And depending upon who you order it from, you may be ordering from a country in the United States, but it could be serviced by a country that's by a company out of the country. That means that tariffs are going to be assessed on getting that good into the United States.
Absolutely. So for a coffee shop, for a small business like ours, we are looking at our highest costs, our cost of our goods and the cost of our people, right? So let's just talk about a cup of coffee. It's not just a cup of coffee. It's the cup. It's the coffee as well. It's the sugar. It is the lids. It is the stoppers. And those things are oftentimes sourced through a distributor. That distributor is sourcing it from sometimes in large quantities out of the country. So when these tariffs go up and these tariffs, and if even when they go down, let me tell you, those prices stay up. There's a saying, up like a rocket, down like a feather. We don't get to see those prices go down. And so what happens for a cup of coffee that was $3.50, you see it go up to $3.75, you see it go up to $4, because ultimately, Roland, what we have to do in order to stay in business is pass those costs along to the consumer in order for us to have the margins, right? A large portion of what we're doing is the cost of the things, the cups, the spoons, the knives, the forks, the things that we're buying, and also for our folks, right? In order to continue to be able to employ them, there are a lot of different pressures on small businesses with regard to employing people. And that's what you don't see. You walk in, we say, welcome to Momentum Coffee. And behind the scenes, we're juggling a lot. And it's getting more and more difficult. These rising costs and the tariffs and the uncertainty that those bring are really making it difficult for us to operate. We, Roland, in 2025, closed 2 of our locations. We started during in 2020, right? But we found that last year was one of our most difficult years, and then going into the beginning of this year being as difficult as well because of those rising costs.
You made a point about the biggest expenses. I tell people all the time, labor is the biggest expense, and when people are faced with rising costs, low profit margins, it is going to result in laying people off. Business owners have to look at the bottom line. They may love the person, they may appreciate their work, but what we are seeing when you drive those expenses up, then the biggest expense line is staff, personnel. That's the first thing in many places that's going to get cut.
Absolutely, and I think that lawmakers need to understand this, right? There is an impact. And those rising costs, right? You say 30% for the cost of our goods, the 30% for the labor, 30% for the overhead, right? Our rent for our location has gone up significantly as well. And with that, we have to make difficult choices. And oftentimes that is the biggest cut is labor. And we are employing people in our neighborhoods. It's what we do as a mission-based business. We are rooted in community and powered by coffee. However, in order to be able to protect the business, we have to sometimes make difficult costs. And so whether we start with cutting hours. So first it's, can you shave some hours here in order to save the folks? But at some point, the costs rise so large or increase so much that you have to cut employees. It's not what we want to do, it's what we have to do. And those are the things that we're being faced with and the questions and decisions that we're making as we look at things that we don't control. We are forced to look at things that we can control, and a lot of times that is the people that we have to make those choices.
Questions from the panel. Rebecca, you first.
So what should the average consumer do in order to support small businesses during this time?
Oh, well, I think you said it. Support small businesses, right? One, be intentional with your dollar. It does matter. It does matter where you go. It matters how often you go. It matters that you're showing up. And I think it's also really important to provide feedback to small businesses, right? Small businesses are in their communities in order to provide those services, oftentimes like ours, have a mission to serve and are doing lots of things to be that economic driver in their communities. So showing up and being supportive and also providing feedback where there might be some pain points on the consumer side. Hey, take it to your small business before you take it to the internet.
Zachary.
So, one thing that I want to know, I think it's important to emphasize to the audience that, some of us we've lived through this. We've gone through this in previous Republican administrations. And so as a business owner, what do you foresee as what will come next, and what can Black people do to survive that?
All right. Well, what comes next, right? Well, Black people and Black businesses do survive, right? We've found a way to be able to, find the power in the pivot and continuing to do those things. One of the things that's a little bit different is that there's a lot of things happening at once, right? So there's the tariffs, there's the tightening of dollars and credit, there's increases in healthcare costs, and so I think we've seen it before. But all of these things happening at once, I think, is what is a little bit different. What is on the other side of this? A lot of collaboration and a lot of conversation. I think one of the things that we're doing here is highlighting beyond the highlight reel what's been difficult for small businesses. We have to talk about what our struggles are. We have to talk about what some of the resolutions are, and we have to work together to do that. And we work with other small businesses. We share what's working and what's not working for us. We talk about where to purchase things. We talk about how can we purchase things together and look at some things that maybe in history we've done, right, that we haven't done so much before or in the current, but need to do again so that we survive this and thrive and show up on the other end.
Patrick.
Yeah, so I'm interested in, and I would love to hear your thoughts. After reading this report, it says that between 67 and 71% of small business owners are insecure about whether they can make payroll or not. And it seems to me that this economic theory of tariffing our way into prosperity has given, at least for the working class, a silent killer like high blood pressure. And I'm interested in, what do you think the effects of that kind of silent killer when it comes to payroll? And it seems that perhaps the working class are maybe one or two paychecks from being in their own personal recession. And it seems on a macro level that this is leading toward that. And I'm wondering, how are you thinking about that?
How I think about how this all impacts people, right? We talked about healthcare, right? Small businesses, if they're making choices, might not, like ours, we don't provide benefits, right? And so we want to be able to provide benefits to our team. Other small businesses aren't able to do that as well. So imagine not being able to do that, people being stressed about their jobs, how that lands on them in terms of health is certainly something to think about. When we talk about payroll, it is difficult, right? It's something that you need people to work in order to make the money, and then it's time to make that payroll. It is not easy to hire people because it's not just the cost of the actual payroll, right? It is also the cost of the taxes that you pay. It's the other costs that are associated with it that oftentimes people don't understand and people don't see, and small businesses don't really get when they're embarking on this journey. So what I see is that there's rising costs. People are going to make decisions. There's going to be people that are laid off. And then what do they do? Where do they go? When you have these small businesses that were traditionally these employers in neighborhoods and they start to disappear from the landscape, it really starts to create this cycle. And so we're recognizing it now. We need to look at how we stop that from happening. We look at how we can support our small businesses. And those are the things that the small business majority really looks to advocate. How are the ways that we bring down healthcare costs? How do we provide better access to loans? Not tightening up credit, but how do we provide the access to loans for our small businesses so they can continue to do the work in the neighborhoods and support the economy, right? The local economy, and hire people. So I see that as a way for us to, not fall off this cliff and create this cycle of where it looks like we're going. I think it absolutely can be prevented if we're doing things like that.
Nikki, the point you were making there about benefits, and this is what people just don't get. So let's just say you have a business and you made a $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 profit. I remember having this conversation with somebody about 5 years ago. We had a good year, and they said, "Well, are you going to give your staff bonuses?" And I said, "No." And she was like, "Well, I don't understand why." I said, "Okay, let me walk you through this." I said, "You don't know what, in our case, advertising." I said, "You don't know what the advertising is going to do the first quarter, the second quarter of the year." I said, and so you have to create an economic cushion when you are an owner. And I said, and you don't want to sit here and say your cushion is $50,000. I said, or $100,000. I said, because what's going to end up happening is if all of a sudden something happens, costs go up, again, economic downturn, you now are in a position where you may have to lay people off. I said, I would rather have an economic cushion of $500,000. So if my monthly expenses are $150,000, this is 5 years ago, my monthly expenses were, let's say, $125,000. I've now put myself in a position that barring, if everything just dropped out, you can operate for almost 5 months without any new revenue coming in. And so when you start talking about benefits, people have to recognize if you're now doubling the cost. So if your labor cost, let's just say your labor cost is, annually, your labor cost is $1 million. When we start talking about benefits, you might as well add another $1 million onto that for benefits. And that's what people don't understand. So folk go, well, I don't get it. I need benefits. And I'm like, I get it. I understand you need benefits. Small business owners say this every day. We know you want benefits, but there's a cost to benefits. There's a cost to health care and dental and things along those lines that people don't necessarily think about when you're not an owner.
Right, and you're right. They don't think about it. They're seeing it from their lens, and we understand that. But it's important for us to, because we have to look at those numbers so that we're here to hire people. And I want to make another point. One of the things is these costs continue to go up. What it does is it impacts our ability and our decision making around who we can hire. What happens for us, Roland, is that, again, we want to be in communities and under-resourced communities, meaning that we want to hire from those communities. We want to work with people and train them. What does that translate to? That we're teaching, that they're untested. When you have to make different decisions about hiring, you're less likely to take risks on the unknown. And so the very people that you set out to help, the same people that the lawmakers say that they want to help, get marginalized, get set to the side, because when I'm paying a higher amount for a salary, I'm looking for the person who's already done this, because the cost of hiring, the cost of labor, the cost of the overhead is too great. And so these are the difficult decisions that small business owners like us are making every day, that set out with a mission to have this particular impact in our communities. And these things like tariffs and increasing health costs and rising costs that we do not control put us in a position rather to have to make other types of decisions. And the folks looking from the outside don't get it. But it's incumbent upon us to understand those numbers and make sure that we're here for another day. It looks like coffee. It looks like it's just coffee. It looks like it should be simple. However, there's all these components to businesses like ours that come into play that require us to really keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening across the landscape of the lawmakers and the tariffs, because it impacts our business each and every time we hear something like that.
And you said it best. The goal is to be here to live another day. All right, Nikki, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate and for the panel, for the questions.